You're listening to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast. Two friends since Dan Rather was still a respected journalist, now guides on your nostalgic tour of Disney history, one magical film at a time. I'm Eddie Ferguson.
And I'm JB Waggoner. And on today's episode, we promise to be brave, truthful, and unselfish as we review Pinnochio.
So fasten that safety restraint and pull up on the yellow strap. It's time to open the vault.
Cue that Disney-est sound effect.
Okay, here we are with Pinnochio, the second animated film in the history of Walt Disney animation. I think the first thing that I thought was really interesting was this was not intended to be the second release.
Right, yeah.
The second release, what Walt Disney wanted to do next was Bambi, but it proved to be very difficult to animate real animals, to kind of make that animation
a little
really
more
work
difficult to make them realistic and not spaghetti.
Just a little bit. And so that got delayed. And so Pinocchio got pushed up to be a little bit further. Another European fairy tale, but this time we're not with the Brothers Grimm and their creepy stories that fill kids with tons of nightmares. But now we come to an Italian kids fairy tale
that
from 1883.
That might still give kids nightmares depending on how
For
you
sure.
read the stories.
Well, and I think what probably the defining factor that just kind of switches between Snow White to Pinocchio is Snow White is a short story. It is a short kids fairy tale, and Pinocchio by I'm gonna attempt this. I don't speak Italian, but
There we go.
Carlo Collodi. That's my Spanish pronunciation.
Oh, I would
of
have done a
Italian last
very
name.
American
Collodi.
version of that. I would have done Collodi.
Collodi. The double L is typically a y sounds in Latin languages, so I'm assuming it was actually a full novel, The Adventures of Pinocchio, and I guess I'll lead there. I would say that this has a much stronger overall story arc than what we found in Snow White. Like Snow White, definitely at moments you kind of feel it getting stretched out a bit, like they're filling in some holes. We talked about that in last week's episode of the dwarfs and just kind of having to build out those characters a lot more than what you found in the source material. Here, you feel Disney actually having to do the opposite, which is like pare back the source material and give you their version of Pinocchio, which is going to start being more of a trend, something that we're going to see in some of the upcoming stories.
So I did my homework on this one, and I did not go read the original book because it is a longer book. It is not a short story. It was actually a serialized originally in this like children's newspaper. It was like these short little stories
Highlights.
Over and over again.
Like
highlights.
the Italian highlights?
Italian highlights in the 1880, 81, whatever that equivalent would have been. Highlights is probably a good call. But I went back and I just found Wikipedia articles and Smithsonian and some other articles about those stories just to get a sense for it. And like the question always is, whenever it's an adaptation, how close to the original is it? And there are a lot of the weird stuff that's in Pinocchio did also happen in those original series, but slightly different. The biggest difference overall that they made is the Pinocchio that we get in this is a lot kinder, nicer, neater, like heartfelt version compared to that. He's like he's a punk kid. Geppetto makes his foot and he immediately kicks him with it. Then he teaches him to walk and he runs away and gets Geppetto arrested. Like it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So Jimeny Cricket, he doesn't have the name Jiminy in it, which I found also is kind of a slang for kind of a curse word, like yelling Jesus, see, like like that's kind of what that means. But anyways, so the cricket, it just calls him the cricket, comes in and says, hey, you need to be obedient or else bad things are going to happen. And he kills the cricket accidentally. He kills him. He dies in that first moment they meet. And then the ghost of the cricket follows him throughout this thing, popping up here and there. It's super like grotesque to some degree, but it goes on and on and on. The cat and the fox, they trick him. They rob him. Then they hang him, but he doesn't die. Then they convince him to plant gold coins in a field of miracles, and then they steal it and dig it up. He's attacked by a snake, falls over and falls over so weird that the snake starts laughing so hard it dies. It's just like, and then there's the getting drowned or drowning and getting in the whale, and you've got their time in Toyland, which is 5 months, not like. I always wondered watching it, how long is this time? And then he saves Geppetto, and then he comes back. He does go to school eventually, which we never see in the story. But I love going back and seeing, okay, how close did they come to the source material? And this one, like you said, a perfect way to put it, like they had to pare down that source material because it's actually crazier than what we got in this movie.
So here's my question, okay? So the story as I know it is that during the production on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the lead animator for the evil queen who becomes the old hag is a guy by the name of Norman Ferguson, no relation. Ooh. As far as I know.
You looked it up, I'm sure. Yeah.
I didn't have time to run a full ancestry background. We'll do that after this. I'll call my grandma. Grandma, do we know? No. He brings a translation of the novel to Walt Disney and is like, we've got to do this. And the quote is, Walt was busting his guts with enthusiasm to make this. So that's the story. You've just set the stage of what the original source material is. What do you see in this to go, oh, this would make a great kids novel? Like, I feel the same with the Grimm's fairy tales as well, but you kind of like, how do these guys see these things and go, oh, that would make a really great kids cartoon?
It's whatever the same sentiment or feeling there is to the fact that they actually made this movie that at times made me uncomfortable as a grown adult. Now, maybe I'm just projecting what I was feeling as a kid watching this and kind of being very scared by all of the pleasure Pleasure Island and the donkeys that are screaming their mom's name as they're being thrown in a pen and sold to the zoo and stuff like that. Like, I genuinely have mixed feelings about this movie, and part of it is because of that, because of like the taste of what they thought was what was kids material versus what my own sentiment is. So when you're saying, what were they thinking reading these crazy stories and saying this would be a great children's, it's probably the same ideas that they're like, yeah, let's still keep in the whole kids turning into donkeys after having a drunken night of smoking of cigars, like vandalism and all the other things that were happening on Pleasure Island. It's hard to unseat that from some of the better moments from this for me. And I know we'll get more to the review in a little bit, but that's my take.
Yeah, but I would say so to their credit, I do see this story overall as more of an allegory, right? Like it is. I don't think its true intention is to be a more realistic story. It is obviously allegorical. Yeah. I mean, you start with the blue fairy saying, you need to be brave, truthful, and unselfish.
Yep.
Which I think, okay, just kind of stepping back a little bit, like if we're talking like morals, and in general, like morals and values that you would want to instill in a young boy to grow up to be, a good man. You would say like, hey, I want you to be brave. I want you to be truthful. And I want you to be unselfish. And you see that in each of the episodes, like each of the little 3 story beats. I don't know how
that's right. That's right.
Because they're not full acts, but he's learning to be brave, truthful, and unselfish. And each of those he has these 2 lessons of learning the opposite of feeling what are the consequences of being of being the opposite of each of those values. And then in the end learns it in a way to save his own father's life.
Yep.
It's crazy. And in the moment you're like, but I think its intended purpose is to scare the bejeebers out of little boys, right? Like that is kind of the point. Like, let's freak these little American boys out to like, hey, you better step up and, be good, or this is, you're going to be turned into a donkey. Do you want to be turned into a donkey? That's what happens if you smoke or drink.
Well, everybody was a little too happy when they were making this because, we just had a little thing called World War II that had just started like months before. Just broken out like 6 months beforehand. So, we were all a little too callous coming out of the Depression and all that kind of stuff.
It's still ramping up. Like, I mean, well, if you think about the context, yes. So, the U.S. is still solidly in the Great Depression when this is being worked on. I mean, it came out in 1940. Am I correct?
Yep.
So, I mean, you don't really have the outbreak, the beginnings of the outbreak of World War II until 38, 39. I think the first invasion in Europe was 38. And then the U.S. is not attacked until 41. So we're kind of in this ramp up towards that. And yeah, that was the time. The time was tales to teach morals. And so it kind of makes sense that this was picked, that this was chosen and all of that. But what was interesting is that this was not a huge success when it first came out.
No, they had really high hopes that it would actually exceed what Snow White was doing, and that they were promising their employees, hey, we're going to give you extra bonuses once we recoup all of this money that we got from making this film, which they invested. It still made a lot, but it didn't make nearly what Snow White was doing. And some of the reasons that they said at the time, one of which was there was a lot of focus on World War II. Even if it wasn't us involved in it, it was the news and the headlines of the day at the time. It was
consumed.
Then it was also competing with Gone with the Wind, which was a massive movie to come out just weeks beforehand. Then you've also got like just how much it's a more kid-focused film. So you've got less adults that are as intrigued by it. But then you've also got some people, maybe like me, that were like, I don't know if I want my kid going to see this. So I think all of those things combined kind of hampered it at the box office when it actually did finally come out.
But in the long run, it has become one of, the biggest films in Walt Disney's kind of library. Critics love it. And let's not forget, like, the theme song, like the song. So, I mean, Pinocchio wins best score and best original song at the Oscars. So it wins two Oscars.
Wow.
And there's only like a handful of films that have ever done that have won both score and original song, like the 1-2 punch. And they're like all Disney movies, of course, like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast. Then it goes on. That song is the theme song of the Walt Disney Company, right? Like When You Wish Upon a Star still opens every Disney movie that we go and see. That is the tune that's played over the castle. So I don't think that this movie has near the level of kind of impact on the company and the culture as the previous two that we've looked at. But it definitely does have a lasting mark on the Walt Disney Company at minimum. And I mean, when you wish upon a star, yeah, it's kind of become a central idea of the Walt Disney Company. You know, it comes back in like movies like Princess and the Frog. It's the whole idea behind the next movie that's coming out, Wish. Like the whole plot is, where does the wishing star come from?
But do you still connect When You Wish Upon a Star with Pinocchio, or has it outgrown the movie to it's now just a part of the icon? It's part of the what you think of when you think of Disney. Because for me, I don't associate it with. That's a
really good question.
I might still associate it with Jiminy Cricket, like that, because you think of him singing it. But for the most part, I think of that song on its own as its own iconic moment that is connected. And it is it's like, just like the mouse, just like the signature, just like the castle, the song is Disney to some degree, to me at least. How about for you, Eddie?
I think you're totally spot on. I think for most people, you know, they hear When I Wish Upon a Star or When You Wish Upon a Star, you know, in the parks or before a movie or anything like that. If you were to go, hey, what Disney movie did that come from? I think they would have to, like your average consumer would have to kind of think a second and maybe take a few guesses. I mean, like your diehard Disney fans are going to go, oh yeah, it's Pinocchio. But I don't even think for a diehard Disney fan, like you immediately associate that song with Pinocchio. You associate it more with, it's the theme song of the Walt Disney Company. I would agree with you wholeheartedly on that assessment.
Speaking of Jiminy Cricket, one of the cool production stories behind it, behind that character is, so the animator who is famous for creating Jiminy Cricket and what they became, and they actually stated that eventually the version of him that they finally landed on was the least version that looked like an actual cricket. And if you hadn't said the word "I'm a cricket," like you would never know that that's what it actually is. He has nothing else part of him. He's just a little person with big eyes and kind of has like a little antenna, maybe, but it could be hair. But so the animator who created him, he actually had finished up on Snow White, and he was handing in his resignation letter, like, I'm done, I'm ready to move on, do other things. Came into Walt's office, and Walt just started telling him about the story of Pinocchio and all he wanted to do, and he kept on honing in on Jiminy Cricket and all the things he wanted to do with it. And Ward Kimball got so enthused by that meeting that he rescinded his resignation letter and then took over animating. And then he's the one that really landed the final version of Jiminy Cricket. I just thought that was a cool, like, behind the scenes story leading up to it.
Yeah, and I mean that character is so. For me, Jiminy Cricket is my favorite character in this. There's a couple that are like entertaining and cool, but especially in that opening sequence when he's in Geppetto's workshop and he's just kind of like going around with the clocks and just like I don't know. I appreciated the animators, like what they had him do and all of the different interactions. It's definitely taking something so simplistic, like a anamorphic cricket, you know, who is now in a toy shop, and taking that and really playing with that, really opening that up in a really interesting way that I don't know. There's little gags and stuff in there that I appreciated quite a lot.
Have you seen the latest Puss in Boots movie that came out in January? I've not
even seen the original Puss in Boots movie.
So you don't have to see the original at all. But if you can go find, I don't know which streaming service it's on or whatever, several people told me, man, this was way better than I thought it was. And I was looking for something to take my son to at the time. But they have a cricket that is on the shoulder of one of the bad guys. And it's got it's like they took Jiminy Cricket's voice, mixed it with, what's his name from It's a Wonderful Life, one of your favorite actors of all time, Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart,
but then like heightened the clichéness of it. You got to check it out, Eddie. And if you're listening to us, the listener, and you haven't watched the new Puss in Boots, I think it's The Wishing Star or something like that. Check it out, because the cricket in there is like goes bananas. He's like trying to be good, and then he just like loses it. You are a hopeless case, and runs away. But no, that idea of like someone on your shoulder, I'm sure that might have been done before, but he is one of the iconic versions of that. Sometimes we see the angel and the devil on either side in that kind of imagery, but then just having your conscience as somebody, that was definitely something that this popularized for sure.
The other thing that this popularized was the idea of taking well-known celebrities of the time and putting them as the voice actors in animated films.
Oh, really?
That whole phenomenon starts here with Pinocchio. In the previous two movies, you don't really have, or at least in Snow White, you don't have any context, right? Like nobody knows if this is going to be a success. Everything's so experimental, like no celebrity is going to hop in on all this. Snow White is so popular. Others want to be involved in this. And Disney is now thinking like, okay, this is how we can up this. This is how we can kind of, take this further. And this is the first time that animated film uses celebrities as voice actors.
Who
and
are
Jiminy
they?
Cricket. Jiminy Cricket is voiced by Cliff Edwards, also known as Ukulele Ike. This is, something that he's a well-known singer at that time. We don't know of him anymore. And you mentioned one of mine, if not my favorite actor of all time, Jimmy Stewart. My favorite Jimmy Stewart movie, top 10 movies that I love, is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Love that movie. And the little boy in that movie, the actor by the name of Dickie Jones, he was 11 when he voiced Pinocchio.
Whoa. Deep cut, Eddie.
Yeah, so he grabbed a lot of different people. A lot of the other voices and stuff are kind of well-known. Mel Blanc is in this. He's well-known for all of his different characters in Looney Tunes from the Warner Brothers studios. He goes on and he voices Gideon the cat. You've just got, this is the beginning of, hey, let's take well-known celebrities and put them in animated films, to which we still see today.
Another thing we still see today is remaking these films over and over and over again. We talked about it with Snow White.
Well, yeah.
And there have been 18 remakes of Pinocchio, plus, like last week when we talked about Snow White, having two of them come out at the same time in 2012. Last year, we had two Pinocchio films come out in the same year, one on Disney Plus with Robert Zemeckis and Tom Hanks, and then Netflix with Guillermo del Toro, both in the same year. This is just ironic that we're having this happen. And I haven't seen any of them. I haven't seen any of them.
But only one of them was nominated for an Academy Award. We'll let you
guess which one.
Guess which one that was.
It was not the Disney Plus one. I can pretty much tell you that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have not seen the Guillermo del Toro one. I'd like to. I've heard that it's if you can imagine just take what you described as the source material and then put the crazy mind of Guillermo del Toro
now
behind
I'm interested.
It's just like,
yeah.
Now I am as well. But the Robert Zemeckis one, Tom Hanks, it's not horrible.
Ooh, this coming from the guy who does not watch remakes as a part of his like moral compass.
I know. If it didn't have Tom Hanks in it, I don't think I would have watched it. I don't think I would have watched it. I can see that.
I have no desire whatsoever.
But I fell asleep multiple times while we were watching it. Like yeah. And when I say it's not horrible, I mean it's not, Lion King, Beauty and the Beast. Like, those are horrible. But this, it's horrible. It's got like one cool little moment. The remake, all the clocks on the wall in Geppetto's workshop are actually clock representations of all the different Disney animated movies.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
I would not recommend watching the remake at all. I would say, like, go grab a clip and watch Geppetto's workshop and just to see how they do all the different clocks. Like let's just say you don't have a mom spanking her son as one of the clocks.
I wanted to spend some time here on the clocks. It was like the first time this movie just like pivoted in a hard way where I was like, wait, what? And I remember this, but for just being, I guess older and having whatever, now it just felt so dramatic. Well, first you get the cutting off of the turkey's head. That's just like the turkey pulling its head out, pulling it back, pulling its head. Then you just get the drunk guy at the bar, just like falling out of the clock and then coming back. And then the spanking child, where it's just like, there's some red stuff that looks like paint, could be blood, I don't know. But then just like spanking the child over and over again when it strikes 9 o'clock. I was like, wow, this went really hard, really fast for no apparent reason.
Or Jiminy Cricket hitting on one of the women on the clock.
Let's just say multiple people he hit on in this movie. There's multiple different inanimate objects that he found very attractive.
Oh my. Yeah. You had mentioned Ward Kimball earlier. I think it's worth noting that Ward and this like when you go from Snow White to Pinocchio is when we start to form what is known as the 9 old men. I don't know if you've ever heard of this in the kind of the legend that is Disney animation. Ward Kimball is one of them. You've got Mark Davis, who ends up going off to be one of the very first Imagineers. He is animating on Pinocchio. He's actually the one who came up with Pirates of the Caribbean. We have him to thank for all that. And then guys like Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnston, like these are the 9 that really establish what is animation. That the Snow White to Pinocchio journey. I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but just those who rise up to the top between these two movies is what established the 9 old men and really establish the legacy of what is an animated film for years to come.
That's cool. Some just other random things I want to call out in here and kind of talk about. I enjoyed the song Hi Diddly Dee, An Actor's Life for Me. I'd never just sat and thought about the lyrics for that. And it's a great song because it is exactly the I know it didn't come from the original story. That was my first question to actually come from there. But just the fact that they're like basically saying you should become an actor because that's the easy life that will get you to, you don't need school or anything like that. Just go become an actor. You'll make a ton of money. It'll be easy and beautiful and fame and fortune. And I don't know if that was done tongue in cheek or if they were like kind of like sticking it to their own Hollywood or something like that. But I so appreciated this song in another way that I hadn't really felt before. And it also is very ironic watching this now as the SAG strike is still going on, and because they're saying our life is not as good as like you think it is right now, and we're not getting the return that we used to get. Right. So I just having the captions on. This is one of the good things about being old and having captions on everything now is you get to see.
You're a caption watcher?
Oh, 100% now. We are. I think my wife kind of maybe started a little bit, and now I have it. There's so much dialogue that I just couldn't hear before, or didn't like totally catch the nuances of what they were actually saying. And so this song
I'll send you a couple of articles and like little short documentaries. There's actually a reason that most people, like millennials, put on captions, like because the mixing now they're mixing more for like there's two things that happen. Like they're mixing them with the dialogue being softer, like they're putting effects and things. There's actually been like a change in mixing. And then the second thing is most streaming sites default to some type of channels or surround sound that is opposite to what your system is or how you're listening to it. And so like just the settings and stuff are always askew. And so we can't hear dialogue well because of how the streaming service is sending out the signal. So it's not just because it's not just because you are old. It's also because of how the signal is being sent through the streaming services. Yeah. Coming out of that rabbit trail, I think you hit something really important here that I think is a highlight of this movie. I love all the music. Like every song in this to me is catchy and entertaining. Like there's a reason why this wins best score for at the Academy Awards, and also like When You Wish Upon a Star wins best song and has gone on to be like bigger than the movie itself. For me, each and every song in this just hits really, really well and is done fantastically.
I mean, it's hard to top When You Wish Upon a Star. Like that automatically should put all the music. Like even if the other songs weren't that good, at least you have that song.
You know what's interesting? This movie has 100% rating on Rotten Tomato.
Whoa.
That's kind of crazy.
Very intriguing.
Yeah. I don't know if that speaks to the movie or how broken Rotten Tomatoes we know it really is.
Well, the older ones, those are hard to put, especially if it's considered a classic film. It's hard to say,
sure,
I'm just now watching this in 2023 and I really don't like this, so I'm going to rate this. I'm going to give this a thumbs down. It's just kind of hard. Like at least when it comes out, you can be like a few dissenters and stuff. It's just hard to go back when everyone's already made up their mind.
This is well known throughout the Disney company, more so than just its song. It is also in the parks. I'm trying to find here in my notes. Disneyland. Is it still open? I know they did. Do they still have Pinocchio's Daring Adventure?
I believe so.
You're
yes.
The Disneyland guy.
I've been on it before, and it scared me half to death. So yes, I do remember going on it.
So Pinocchio has a ride in both the original Disneyland, Tokyo Disneyland, and Disneyland Paris. So those three all have them. And then in Walt Disney World, there is the world famous, one of the best restaurants, tongue in cheek, Pinnochio Village House, which is one of the quick service restaurants there, where I can get a gluten-free pizza and my wife can get a dairy-free pizza. So I have to say, every time we go to Walt Disney World, we make a stop by Pinnochio's Village House because it's one of the few places in the world my wife can actually get a pizza that won't kill her instantaneously.
How long did we walk around Disneyland looking for the gluten-free taco place that you swore somebody had said on a blog was there and we never found?
I do have to say that, like, Disneyland was not very friendly to the allergies. I was more accustomed to Disney World standards, but we did find one at Pizza Planet. Do you remember we finally went over and found a gluten-free pizza at Pizza Planet.
Eddie, you were very a little sad that after we finished recording, you didn't get to do your plug for all the Snow White importance of the parks. Would you like to take your little stump right here for a few minutes and do that part too?
For Snow White? Stump a little for Snow White?
Yeah, and its importance to the parks.
Well, I have to say, like, as much as I'm like a Disney movie fan, like I'm also a Disney parks fan, maybe even more so than movies. Yes. And so when we finished recording Snow White, I was like, oh, wait, we need to have a segment where we talk about if the classic films show up in the parks. JB, the good friend that he has been all these many decades that he has put up with me, he was like, sure, Eddie, go ahead. You can do this. And so that's why I threw in the Pinocchio. Do you want me to interject
Go for it.
Snow White stuff?
Go for it.
That's
what I'm saying.
Disneyland used to have Snow White's Scary Adventure, which is terrifying. Like it has more of the scary hag than Snow White in it. And I've not seen it, but apparently they just redid the ride out there in Disneyland. Like it's only opened within the past 6 months to a year or something like that, and have made it all better. And then the other honorable mention here is they've got like the most popular ride in Walt Disney World. The most popular or like high demand ride at Magic Kingdom is actually the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which is a pretty sweet coaster mixed with a dark ride. Like there's these really cool dark ride scenes where you're actually in the mines with the dwarfs. That whole scene that we really liked of them like singing the songs and the polka music. Like there's a really cool animatronic dark ride scene with all of that. Plus, it's a roller coaster that most small kids can ride, and the little mine cars swing back and forth and everything. It's actually really, really cool and a lot of fun. So those are my 2 shout outs to Snow White, but I digress.
This has been Eddie's update and how it impacts the Parks Corner. Parks Corner right here for you fellow fans. We got to get that in there. We might even have some episodes coming up that are very dedicated to the parks.
This is true. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of parks, both national parks and Disney parks.
And fictitious parks like Pawnee. Parks. Like Pawnee, Indiana.
And Pawnee. I've got the Pawnee poster right here on my wall. You can't see.
oh goodness. Yeah. So for me, I would say that if we're just talking story-wise on this, my favorite part of this story for sure is the ending of this when with the climax, the whole path has been a stumble for Pinocchio the entire way through, but finally putting the pieces all together in the whale, being the one who said, no, let's do the fire to save us. Let's keep swimming upstream. Let's just keep swimming, just keep over and over and over again and saving Geppetto. Like, I feel like as many wrong turns as he had made this entire story, having that at the very end, I think helped elevate this film. There were definitely times where it was hard for me to stay connected. I was kind of like, what is going on? Why are you following the fox and like, why are you going completely against Jiminy Cricket, who's supposed to be your friend? Why is Jiminy not intervening faster and sooner than he is? Going to Pleasure Island, the donkey, all the stuff. But then when he like says, no, we're going to go save Geppetto. We're going to go dive into the whale's mouth and go find him. I think that definitely made a huge impact on this film and really helped it, for me at least, watching it now again. I think without that scene, I don't know if it would have been really hard for me to watch it, but that was my own interpretation of watching this one, my own review of this.
Well, it makes the ending feel earned, right? Like, because he has, fallen and stumbled so much all throughout the whole movie. Like, it's like finally at the end, like things are clicking and things are coming together. It's epic, but it's, well, hey, there's another park reference that I forgot to call out.
Oh yeah.
Monstro. He's you go through him on the storybook boats there in Disneyland. I love that ride. I remember doing that with you guys. There's another reference of him. But yeah, that's it's earned. And you have such a great, we were talking about this with the dwarf, Grumpy was really the only one with a story arc in Snow White. I mean, you see a titular character, the main protagonist, actually have a pretty substantial arc to his character here, which is interesting, which is kind of makes, it's got its quirkiness, but it's still, at the end of the day, I think it's a really good movie.
So are we
I watched it with my kids.
And did they liked it?
Yeah. So I watched it with my kids. Sarah was out of town. We decided to do daddy camp out, pitched a tent in the living room, air mattress, the whole 9 yards. And we snuggled up in the tent and we watched this together. And I was a little nervous because I'm like, something new, are they going to go crazy and just want to tear down the tent, instead of watch this movie? And they were enthralled. They loved this movie from start to end. They absolutely loved it.
So are you ready to rate it, Eddie?
Yeah, I think it's your turn.
We're just gonna. Whose turn is it to be the first under fire here and set the tone?
I went first last time, so I am gonna let you go this time.
Okay. I've been kind of hinting at it throughout. I don't know if I just had PTSD from being a child and being freaked out of my mind by the donkeys or what. I was not excited to watch this film. I think it was redeeming in the end, but not in like a, wow, what a great arc that happened here. It was more like, oh, thank God he did something right, because otherwise I was going to just be like, this is just a waste of a story. It made me so frustrated most of the time through. Another piece of it, as I was just sitting here going, there isn't like a compelling, there's like evil people in this film, but there's not like a great antagonist, unless you just want to say Pinocchio is his own greatest antagonist in this film, which is super meta for this. But like Stromboli is there for one segment. The cat in the Honest John is there for a little bit and kind of swindles them twice and then done. The coachman is there for one scene. You get the whale, but like even the whale, like, should we be looking at how aggressive are whales really? Are they actually? This is another like wolves don't attack people. Wolves. Is this the new thing? And just a side note, like, it's weird that like everyone's amazed at the talking puppet, but they're not amazed at the talking fox and cat.
Yes,
and they're the only animals in this entire thing that are talking and conversing. Yes. But that's all. They're from the original story anyway. Sorry. So I think I still. This is a very nostalgia pick for me on this rating, because I can mentally see, yes, this is teaching good things to people, and he does have an arc and he does have a moment at the end. But my 7 or 8 or 5-year-old version of me that was so freaked out by the donkeys is like, but no, I will not be turning this thing back on for a very long time. And for that, I'm giving it an interesting number 2. I'm giving it a 2. It is interesting. Entertaining. I would not put that in there, but that's for me. I know I'm shocking you right now, but on our rating system, 1 to 5, giving it a 2. Interesting.
Wow. Shots fired here, folks. Like when you were talking about like, ooh, who's going to be the first to not give a 5? I'm like, okay, he's going to dip down. Maybe I thought lowest he would go was a 3, but no. Interesting.
If we had a different name other than entertaining for 3, maybe I would have considered it. But I wouldn't. The part of me is like, this was not an entertaining experience that I want to go back through.
So, I'm going to have a very different take here. I am going to give it a classic. I'm going to go 4 on this one. No, I for the reasons I've stated, I think the music in this is some of the best of any Disney movie. There's a reason why the main song of this has become iconic unto itself. It's got a good character arc throughout. I think the ending is well earned. And I'm compelled by the story. I'm very entertained all the way throughout. I don't think it doesn't rise all the way up. I don't think this is essential. I'm not going to, somebody's going to has to see this in order to be a Disney fan. But Yeah, it's still classic for me. I think it holds up as a good story, as good animation, as an entertaining, film all through and through. It's a 4. It's classic for me. But JV, a 2. Just interesting.
I'm a hater.
Just
over
interesting. Here. It's a Debbie Downer. Now that we have filled you up on all of that wonderful nostalgia from Pinocchio, we've got a bit of Disney news for you. An actual little bit of Disney news this time around. JB, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, the first one is that more delays coming. I'm assuming a lot of it is because of the SAG strikes, etc. But so they've delayed 3 series, one of which is X-Men 1997. Did I also see the Echo show? It got delayed as well. It was supposed to come out during. Back. Yeah, that was supposed to come out at the end of this year. A spinoff of Hawkeye. But now we're all the big one that we've been it's just been floating there, not knowing exactly when it was to come out. The date kept on being ambiguous, and we finally got that. So Agatha, the spinoff from the Wanda series, WandaVision, the one we've been waiting for. We were so excited we were getting her to her own series. That's getting pushed back another year to fall of 2024. Eddie, are you heartbroken that we don't get? It was Agatha all along. We have to wait a little bit longer.
So I love Catherine Vaughn. I think she is a fantastic 100%. Actress and just funny in everything that she's ever touched. And so I'm excited for it for that fact. That being said, it's not like Marvel is doing fantastic here in these shows. And I think this is a combination of things. One, yeah, we've got the writer's strike and the SAG strike going on. So I don't think this is fully written. I don't think they were still just in pre-production, right, on that show.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense that gets pushed back. I think it's interesting that Echo gets pushed back because it sounds like that's all pretty much prepped and ready to go. That's probably a sign of okay, there's too much Disney Plus Marvel content being pushed out. Plus, we don't have anything coming down the pipeline. So let's just start this spreading out process now. Let's just kind of spread this out a little bit.
Because probably next spring, we're going to have a giant open spot where no movies are ready to be released.
Right. Which, you're seeing that's why they've pushed, Warner Brothers pushed Dune 2 back, right? Because they got to start spreading these films out. And they already made enough money this year. So, I think that's interesting. So what our last Marvel show for the year is Loki.
That's it.
Because even What If, the animated series, got pushed back as well into 2024.
That's right. That's the fourth show that all got pushed out.
Which is fun. I've got to say, that's the unsung hero of all of the Marvel shows is the What If anthology series. Have you watched any of those?
I have. I just didn't know how much of it was going to be canon, and then come to find out more of it was canon than actually you thought was going to be happening. And it actually pulled up some of that in Multiverse of Madness. So I was a little shocked when that was in there. I was like, oh, if you had no context, it wasn't crucial to know. But sometimes some of that stuff is ooh, yay, play with it and just go wherever you want to. But then sometimes why am I watching this if it doesn't connect? And it did. So maybe I need to go back and rewatch it again.
There we go. As you mentioned before, I look for every opportunity to shoehorn in some news about the parks and things that are going on there. But as of now, we've got some previews. A new attraction is about to open. The first attraction based upon Moana, which I love. I think Moana is a great film. The first attraction, but it is a walkthrough attraction. It is not a full ride, dark ride or anything like that. But it is The Journey of Water. I'm getting this name right. The Journey of Water.
You seem so
inspired by Moana.
You seem so like confident.
It's a weird name.
Of Water.
Well, it's a weird name. The Journey of Water inspired by Moana or something like that. It's obvious that they were working on just a water experience thing because this is Epcot. Epcot traditionally has not been like heavy on IP. It's kind of had more of a even edutainment type of bent to it. And so it's obvious that they were kind of like going that route of just like, what is the water cycle? Like cool things you can interact with water and do all these different things. And somebody's like, hey, we have really, let's shoehorn our IP into everything.
Yeah.
And so they put Moana over it. But with that, there's like some really cool structures and different things like that, the Te-Fiti and everything in there. I just thought it was worthy. Hop on Instagram, look at Disney Parks, and you can kind of see some cool photos of this new attraction that everybody's probably going to forget the name of, but we're just going to call it the Moana water thing.
Before we go, Eddie, I hope you and the family have a good week.
I hope so too. I know a couple of weeks ago I had a crazy story about our daughter Eileen, and we had another great one this morning. We come home from church and we said, "Hey Eileen, do you need to go pee in the potty?" And she goes, "No, it's okay. I went pee on the floor at church." So unbeknownst to us, somewhere in our little church, our daughter we don't know.
We don't know. You didn't like go back and like try to tell us. Oh yes, this is so good.
So like tonight, like when we went back, it was just like we had so many other things going on. So like tomorrow I'm going to have the but I mean, it's going to be like all dried up or whatever. I don't know. But she's like, oh yeah. I had to go. So I went, and we're like, tell us like you were with us the whole time. So yes, hopefully we have a better week than that.
And with that, you've got your weekly dose of Disney nostalgia.
Be sure to subscribe to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast wherever you listen to your other favorite podcast, and give us a look on YouTube as well.
While you're there, please like or leave a 5-star review, and please share this with your best friend who also might be a Disney adult, like us two people.
You can also check us out at honeywemade.com, where you can see all of our nostalgic reviews of Disney movies.
Tune in next week as we review Fantasia.
Thank you for listening, and remember, when you wish upon a star, your dreams come true.